have some vibes, 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 vibes. Some vibes, some vibes, some vibes. Heart and soul, taking control. Inside the festival you will find me. Heart and soul, taking control. Inside the festival you will find me.
Welcome to another episode of Inside the Festival with Dahlia from Bahamas Carnival Guide and the one and only Mixtress Africa Allah. Today we welcome Crispin from Fresh Entertainment Bahamas in the studio.
Today's show is brought to you in part by Bahamas Carnival Fete Weekend, June 4th through 10th, the Print Shop, and Duce. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Fresh Entertainment Bahamas boss Crispin Clear is with us today. Welcome, Crispin.
Thank you for having me, Africa. Hi, Dahlia.
Hi, Crispin. Nice to meet you.
So we're going to start off with an inquiry because a lot of people don't know that Fresh Entertainment and Fresh International are two separate entities. Tell us a little bit about Fresh Entertainment, how long you've been in the industry, and what your contribution is to the Bahamian entertainment landscape.
Fresh Entertainment has been around from 1989. Started off in Freeport, Grand Bahama. Doing small parties, DJs, and then we just elevated to big stage shows. I like to think that we've contributed a lot to the industry as it relates to trying our best to provide quality, clean entertainment for all the demographics, all ages, from family events to, I guess, hip hop. Okay, what was your question now?
Okay, so you have been in the industry since the 1990s. Started out in Freeport, Grand Bahama. You are currently, according to your website, the premier turnkey solution for events and logistics. Tell us the services that Fresh Entertainment Bahamas provides and how you got into doing large-scale events.
Our services consist of anywhere from consultancy to turnkey events. In between that, we can offer any aspect of services as it relates to small to large events, from venue setups to all the venue setup services, fencing, staging, camera towers, skyboxes. I'm proud to say that we've actually introduced skyboxes to the industry way back in the 90s, and now it's a staple item now as it relates to doing events in the Caribbean period. So you cannot go to any concert without there being this providing this premier space, which we call skyboxes. We minimized skyboxes and created what we call a platinum box, which is not as tall as a skybox. Skyboxes start anywhere from 6 feet. The floor starts from 6 feet up, but platinum boxes starts anywhere from 6 inches up. So they're a little shorter than the skybox, and the square footage is a little bit smaller also. Staffing, full bar services for events. We also offer consignment for the bars, for the liquor. And we found that a lot of people in the industry, especially the younger promoters that's not established, a lot of them have a hard time with credibility dealing with a lot of these big vendors like the liquor stores. So we try to help them out by using our own credibility and provide them with certain services so the event can have a great experience, which is another part of what Fresh Entertainment inspires to do. And we try to help as many promoters as possible if they allow us to, and finding that is somewhat difficult because there's always this tension of, as I don't want to make it racist, but as Black people, that we can't work together. So they always some of us see one another as competitors. And because we are competitors, our pride will not allow us to seek help. So I try to do it subtly by having conversations with a lot of promoters and just give them advice. Back in the 80s, early 90s, when I started out, unfortunately, I didn't have anybody to talk to. So all the experience I have now was very, very costly. I lost a lot of money because I didn't have the experience and I didn't have the know-how. So it was all trial and error. There was a lot of errors back then being made. If I could help the younger promoters, the newer promoters, even the senior promoters, them avoid some of the mistakes that I made, then they can be more successful. As an extension, the industry could be more successful, because the more successful events we have, then the more the general public will feel comfortable in coming out and attending more events.
That leads us right into the carnival conversation. Dahlia, I think you'd like to pick up on this end.
I would, because that's been something that I have noticed with this carnival product is, you said, the ego sometimes, the pride, whatever it may be, it gets in the way of progress, of working together, moving forward to build the carnival product. Because I've said this again, or I've said this before and I'll say it again. If Carnival grows, we all win. All the promoters, the bands, any of the stakeholders that have something in this product will win as the product grows. But it's so hard sometimes to see the progress or to build on this thing that we've been working towards for years now, because the egos get in the way, right? This spirit of competition gets in the way, and it's really unfortunate. And clearly it's not just the carnival industry where we see this. I don't know how we move forward from that.
Personal growth. Personal growth. Like I said, it's a cultural thing. It doesn't just happen here. It happens globally. Look at the recent Kendrick Lamar and what's the Canadian rapper called?
Drake.
You know what I mean? Look at Biggie and Tupac. So this has been happening, and I don't know if maybe from the beginning it's just something that's just in our culture as Black people. We rarely see this in other cultures. And, I get it that we all stem from poverty, for the most part. If you go back in history, maybe as families defeated poverty, they segregated and separated from the rest of the village, if I can call it that. They felt that they were indifferent and they was looked upon different. And then that came with a level of power, that came with a level of strength. I don't know if as a culture individually, that's how we look at it without even thinking about it. There's competition all over, and not just in the industry, just with everything. We see it with women, with hairdos and outfits, and who has what and who doesn't have what. I sort of understand now why we grew up going to school in uniforms. It was to condition us without us even thinking about it. Maybe as I talk about it, you might look at it the same way. We went to school in uniforms. You go to prison, you have uniforms, because everybody looks alike. Everybody's wearing the same thing. You don't have anything no different than I have, which means that we are all on the same level. That goes back to tribes. If you look at African tribes, South American tribes, Australian tribes back in the day, everybody wore the same thing. You go in the bush and you make your shoes. You go in the bush, you pick some leaves and you make your dress, or you hide your body parts. Nobody had access to anything that everybody else didn't have access to. So there was nothing to be jealous about. There's nothing to fight about. That's one way, like I said, in schools and in incarcerations where they help keep the peace. Again, like I said, there's nothing to fight over or for anybody to be jealous about, because you have the same orange outfit that I have. Maybe yours might be a little bit newer than mine's, depending on when you got it or whatever. I think when you translate that into the real world, I think that's where jealousy comes from. Everybody wants to have a little bit more than the other person, to be a little bit more recognized than the other person. It's sad because a lot of people are getting hurt, and in certain industries, people are dying. I mean, COVID is an example of that. We're getting ready for an economic war, which is going to hurt a lot of people. I think as individuals, as a country, Bahamas Carnival, we have to grow personally. We have some personal growth that we all have to, look within ourselves and do the inner work, heal some things about us that has nothing even to do with the industry. Just like I said, personal growth, childhood traumas, so we could just have a different mindset of how we think about things. Until then, I think anybody who wants to be a part of the carnival, they're going to try to work with people, but if they can't, then I think they're going to just be forced, if they want to continue to be a part of it, just to do things their own way. Maybe Carnival Association, maybe they need to put some SOPs in place. Maybe they have to create some regulations to enforce that the product heads in in a positive direction. But right now, there's nothing in place and everybody's just free for all. Anybody could pop up and do something in the name of Bahamas Carnival. And I don't think that should be right. I think everything should be regulated. Everything should be sanctioned. Everything should be signed off on, because at the end of the day, we collectively are trying to create a product for the world and to attract the world here to stimulate our economy. Which brings us to another point. What are we doing this for? Are we doing this just for self in making a couple of dollars individually? Or is there a bigger picture where we're doing it to attract tourists here to stimulate the community and economy? And like I said, heading into this economic war, we're going to need that. I think every country is going to need that.
Ultimately, I think that the overall goal from jump was or is to stimulate the economy with new tours and tourism activities that are going to attract people to come year round. I think that was, let me say, I've been documenting Bahamas Carnival since its inception in 2014, when they started promoting Bahamas Carnival. You and I have traveled to various places to promote the product itself for the stimulation of the tourism industry. And I think I think that we've lost focus over the course of the last 10 years as to what the overall goal is. Because when you hear conversations, it's I, and not the communal goal or the communal objective that was initially put forth. And again, the objective of this product was created by a man that is now deceased. So we don't really know what the objective was prior to, but when it was presented as a tourism product. And I think people have lost sight of that. But I also want to say that you gave us a very interesting perspective, and I don't want to gloss over that, because the things that you said really hit home. The jealousy and ego or entitlement stems from the idea that someone has more or less than, and we're not looking at this from an equal playing field. And I think that that's one of the things that are standing in the way. Dahlia, now coming from Canada and being a part of the Bahamas Carnival product over the course of the last few years, what are your views on what was said and the aspect of creating a tourism product?
I also agree that, Crispin made a lot of really good points that are things that we've been talking about and associating with what's going on right now, right? The egos for me is a big thing. This sort of selfish and the I mentality that we've been seeing even recently, right? As we get closer to Bahamas Carnival. Coming from here, recently I wrote a blog post for Bahamas Carnival Guide talking about the economic impacts of Carnival in Toronto, for Ontario. Just looking at the numbers, it doesn't make sense to fight against. There's a lot of pushback from people. Just the numbers make a lot of sense, and it being an economic or a tourism product makes a lot of sense for Bahamas Carnival. I think, like I said, as the product grows, and when I say everybody wins, I'm talking promoters and people putting on events and things, but also the local economy wins. I come to the Bahamas, I spend my dollars, I'm booking accommodations, I'm renting a car, I'm going out to eat, I'm going to the food store, I'm even going to the wash house. Been to the Bahamas so many times and I spent significant periods of time there. I need to wash my clothes. All of those things are going right back into the local economy. It makes a lot of sense. And I think if we were to refocus the mission, right, to refocus the goals, I think people maybe would be more on board, or everybody's objectives would become more clear.
Crispin, I know we got into the economy, and you presented the fact that we are about to head into an economic war, and there are the Bahamas is going to get caught up in it. This is the importance of picking the right leadership. We didn't, or I think globally, people didn't really understand the trickle down effect of leadership in various countries after seeing what's happened in not even 100 days, how a leader can throw off the stability of a global economy. I understand now why America was going into different countries and making sure there wasn't civil unrest, because it would throw off the global economy. Us being a powerhouse and having that kind of effect on the world, we're going to see a lot of changes in tourism. We're going to see a lot of changes in the way people move, even in booking people for Bahamas Carnival 2025. And the people that were gung-ho in January are leery in April because of the uncertainty of if they'd be able to come back into the country after having party for 6 days. It's not funny, but it's funny because it's like, we never believed that we would see this type of time, right? But as we move forth, one thing I've learned from you is run your race. Don't mind what's going on, run your race, keep going. So as we run our race for Bahamas Carnival 2025, Bahamas Carnival Fete Weekend, the collective, I want you to tell me about what you have planned and how we are going to create an experience that is going to make people want to come back.
Now, before I do that, let me just touch on what you said earlier with this global economic war. That's going to affect everybody. Well, I mean, we have to wait and see what happens in the next 90 days as it relates to these big, giant countries, whether or not they can come to equitable agreements. And again, we spoke about egos and stuff. I mean, even the leaders of these countries, they stuck in their own egos because they also are powerhouses and trying to be the number one country or the biggest country or the most powerful country on the planet. But again, like every industry, and in this case, their industries is the planet. Are they really taking into consideration how it's going to affect the planet, the world, the rest of us? Yeah, if these tariffs remain as high as they are, everything coming from China is going to be, 104% duty. You know how much stuff comes out of China into the US? More than 70%, maybe higher. So what's going to mean is that's not going to affect, the government is going to pocket that money, but all they're doing is taking that money away from its people, because now the wholesalers, retailers, they're going to just forward that markup or that tax onto the end user. So where you was paying $1 for a soda, you might now end up paying $2.50 for a soda. That's not really hurting the Coca-Cola or whoever's bringing in sodas. I mean, they make them there, but that might be a bad example of a product.
Well, the plastic that they use.
Yeah, exactly, whatever. But my point is, these companies may pay for it initially in terms of the tariff. Okay, that money goes to the government, but now you're going to go ahead and say, okay, now we have to add that to our landed costs. So now our landed costs went up, and then put our profit on top of that. So who's really paying for it? Who's really paying for it? The people that's paying for it. And if the people have to pay all of this stuff, now the price of food is going to go up. Everything's going to go up, which means now people have less money to take a vacation, less money to come to any carnival or to go anywhere for that matter. We really have to now look at our expenses. We have to create these scales where we now really got to look at our wants versus our needs. Our residual incomes going to be less. And I guarantee you, companies not going to just say, well, hey, we can give everybody a raise so they could afford things now. No, because it's already costing the company 104%. So your salary is not going to go up, but your expenses will. So now that's going to mean that your residual income is going to be way less. So you're not going to be able to do some of the things you did last year. So now you have to choose, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? We want to do vacation with the family, but where are we going to go? I want to do carnivals. I did 12 carnivals last year, but I can't afford 12 carnivals this year. So which 4 am I going to go to? Which brings me to your question about what are we going to do with Bahamas Carnival to cost people or to entice people to come back? The answer to that is difficult, but at the end of the day, I mean, Fresh Entertainment, our goal has always been to create positive experiences. And Unfortunately, the bans for Carnival, they so concentrated on the experience for the road, which some of them do, some of them don't. But if we all take on the same mindset of our objective is to create a positive experience for every visitor, local, then I think they will return. Because if you had fun, if you had enough fun, if you enjoyed yourself that much, it would be something that you would find enticing, that you want to come back to. You're going to tell your friends about it and come back the following year. At the same time, we also have to make it affordable. We can't kill people with high prices because everybody won't be able to afford it. Yeah, I might have a good time, and yeah, I might be able to afford it, but next year I might want to bring my friends. Can my friends afford it? So it's a balance of making it affordable, making it exciting, and creating positive experiences. When I say create positive experience, I could just take a page out of Fresh Entertainment's playbook, and that is our experiences start from we release tickets online. Ease of being able to navigate our website, get your tickets. Then we're talking about at the venue, queued lines, everything's organized, security, and even before that, we're talking about parking. These are all the things that we deliberately put in place. I mean, we have security, we have police, flashing lights when you're parking your cars to eliminate and negate people's cars being broken into. You don't want to go to an event, you had a hell of a time, and you walk back to your car and your glass is broken and your stereo's gone, or your bag that you secured in the back trunk is gone with all your belongings. The only thing you can remember about that event was they breaking into your car. So, we put a lot of things in place to ensure the experience. And the experience is not just a show. We can't just rely on our talent to create a positive experience. The talent is doing their job, but I think as promoters, we need to do our job in ensuring that all the other aspects of the show embodies a great experience. Getting a drink, getting tickets for drinks, getting served fast, the ease of getting everything in one place in terms of drinks. You don't want to go on one side of the venue for beer because you're drinking a beer, but then your girl, she wants a mixed drink and y'all got to walk on the other side of the venue for mixed drinks. So just the ease of being served. The service has to be on point. Your staff have to be very inviting, nice, very courteous, very professional, uniforms, just stuff like that. And a lot of promoters, I go to a lot of events, a lot of promoters, they don't really look at those details, because they're only concentrating on making money. But there's a saying, you're only as good as your last event. You could have done 100 events and the 99s were like 99, your first 99 events were like flawless, but let your 100th event have issues. People can remember the last one, not the first 99. And that's just life. That doesn't even go for events. That's just life, because we don't we expect you to do good. We don't expect you to do bad. Go to work for 10 years and never being late. But come to work late once. Your boss all over your ass, right? And then your justification is going to be all yes. But I've never been late before for 10 years. Like, that's a justification. It's not. You're supposed to be to work on time. Same way as promoters, it's our responsibility to ensure that our patrons, our staff, our sponsors, our talent, and everybody involved have a positive experience. And collectively, if that is accomplished, then we know that the show or the event will be a great success in terms of the patrons and everybody being pleased. Because if the aspect of that, they're not pleased and they didn't have a great experience, you probably won't get their support on your next event or the next year. And that could be sponsors, patrons, talent, staff, anybody. And that's why it's so important to really have that be a big part of your business model when we're doing these events.
I'm so happy to be having this conversation with you, because there's so many things that you touched on that I think when people lose focus, and like you said, we're trying to provide this really fantastic experience to have people come back. And, the key, I think, is in the details. And you spoke about so many great aspects of putting on events that I think promoters, anybody throwing any kind of event, needs to not forget to think about, as they're putting together their plans, myself included. And I pride myself in being very detail oriented. And so, thanks for all of that wisdom. I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about the events that you have on the docket for Bahamas Carnival Fete Weekend 2025.
Well, I have confirmed events and then I have unconfirmed events. I'll have confirmation after Easter break. I should have a confirmation on my entire weekend. But before I even get into that, I have a personal objective this year with Carnival. And I think when they started Bahamas Drunken Carnivals in 2015, I think the government played a major role back then because it was the Prime Minister's whole idea. I think they were trying to accomplish getting to the destination of a Trinidad Carnival, which is a big deal. Now, Trinidad Carnival is like the mecca of carnivals as it relates to West Indian and when we talk about origin. But they didn't understand or didn't take into consideration how many years and how many trials and tribulations that country went through to get to where they're at. And we was trying to do that in our first year. Just trying to duplicate the destination of a carnival weekend as opposed to trying to figure out and learn the journey to get there. For me, I think we need to take it back. What I mean by that is I've been to several carnivals and around the world. And we talking about outside of the road march, right? But all the events surrounding carnival. They all started off with just liming. I mean, just small fets. 50, 60, 100 people. And those same fets grew from 60 people to over 50 years to 20,000 people. But that was a journey. That's a slow growth journey. And as Bahamas, like, we won't have an event with 20,000 people up out front. But in doing that, we're losing the whole essence of what Carnival is, an experience of Carnival. So this year, I want to do small events. I want to do more intimate events where people could really enjoy themselves and really feel and understand the vibe that's happening. Really feel the vibe as opposed to standing up watching a show, because that's not what Carnival is. Carnival is engaging. Carnival music, soca music is music that you can't even describe. It's something that you feel. It's one of the, in my opinion, it's one of the safest musics in the world in terms of fun music in the world, because what other genre of music you could talk about teething a wine on somebody's gal in front of them? I mean, here's a rule, right? It's a 7-second rule. Anything over 7 seconds is a violation, right? But I remember going to Trinidad for the first time, and I forget what it called. I think it's that Sunday. The parade is on Monday, right? So that Sunday, they have this thing on Arapita, right? Arapita is a major road in Trinidad where a lot of vendors and parties and stuff happen, and they have all the big trucks coming down the road. You know, they all have all the lights and they're showing off these trucks, and you know, people in their various band gear, short pants and t-shirt, I think, right? And this guy, I'm on the sidelines, me and my wife, and this fella stopped and just start whining on my wife, right? My wife look at me, I look at her, and I say, girl, you better push your bungie back and get your 7-second whine. And he did it 7 seconds and he moved on. You know what I mean? He moved on to the next person. I mean, you could imagine doing that at a dance hall show. Somebody's gonna die, right? You could imagine doing that at a hip hop show, rap show. They're gonna see that as a serious violation, a serious disrespect. But that's what I mean when I said, you know, soca music is one of those safe, comfortable, fun genres of music where I've never been to a soca show and there was violence, there was fights. I'm sure they happen, but I've never attended any. The culture is respected in terms of being able to dance with anybody without any couple feeling some type of way. Let's just, again, but you just gotta stick to the rules, right? 7 seconds, nothing more. We have to look at that and understand that. So what I want to do is, like I said, I want to do small events and let these small events grow to whatever it needs to grow to. And if Bahamas Carnival, they just grow to 1,000 people, 2,000 people, 3,000 people, if that's its pinnacle, then fine, that's its pinnacle. If it grows to 20,000 people, then so be it also. It's all about fets. And these fets, they don't ever, ever, ever advertise an artist. No, artists just show up. I mean, because the promoters never made it about the artist. The artist is not the draw. The experience is the draw. The artist is just like extra, which really took the experience over the top. But you don't never see them promote the artist. So when you hear Bungie Gal and them singing about 24 parties in a row, that's some real shit. They just go from party to party to party to party, just touching the stage. I don't know if they're paid. I don't know if it's just them promoting themselves during this carnival season and they have an audience of 20,000 people, 10,000 people, whatever. I don't know what it is. But like I said, I know that these artists are not promoted. They just touch the stage. They're on the stage from anywhere from 10 minutes to 25 minutes. And they just creating a vibe. So that's what I want to do. I want to try and duplicate that and create the true experience of what Carnival is, because the Carnival junkies that follow Carnival and that's going to go all over the world to experience carnivals, yeah, they come in with an open mind, but at the same time, they have a foundation of what Carnival is supposed to be. And I think the Bahamas being one of the youngest carnivals, we can't stray far from the foundation of what the Carnival experience is. And I like to think that our first Carnival, I lend my advice in that success, because I'll give you a story. I booked Prime Minister in the food store that Sunday. I go shopping every Sunday. And he was so excited, right? He stopped. Hey, Chris, what you think about our artists for Carnival? I mean, who you think we should choose? And I was like, well, who you got? Who's the options? And he's very excited. He's like, we got Janet Jackson or Usher. Which one do you think we should choose? And I was like, none. And his face just deflated. You know what I mean? He said, none? What you mean none? So I said, okay, let me ask you a question. I said, if Ronnie Butler, and Dahlia, if you don't know who Ronnie Butler is a great Bahamian artist, right? He's been around forever. He passed away a couple of years back, God bless his soul. But he's a very popular Bahamian artist. So I said, if Ronnie Butler is performing in the James Earl Knight Center, which is in downtown Miami, right? I said, would you jump on the plane to go see him? He said, no. I say, so why would you think Americans would jump on a plane to come to the Bahamas to see Janet Jackson or Usher? And at the time, Usher's his tour was failing. He couldn't fill his venues. And I said, so if he can't fill venues back home, what make you think he can fill venues here? So he's like, well, who you think we should get? I was like, well, I'm talking with the Michael Jackson of soca. So he's like, who's that? I said, that's Marshall Montano. Now back then, Marshall was like 30, 40 grand, right? It's a Sunday now. Tuesday, I saw a WhatsApp picture with Marshall in the lucha eating Kong salad. So the government reached out to him, flew him in. I guess they negotiated whatever. And then I heard that they paid him $100,000, more than, almost 3 times what he was asking for. They did Carnival. They spent a lot of money that they shouldn't have spent, in my opinion. They attracted a lot of people, but also they gave away a lot of tickets because they didn't really, in my opinion, they didn't have confidence in the product. But that takes us to another point. Now, Marshall ain't coming to the Bahamas for less than 100,000. It's now like the government really set a false perception of his value for this market and what he can do, because I'm sure in Marshall's defense, he's saying, okay, yeah, I charge them $100,000 and 30 people traveling and this, da, 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 da. Ride expenses just grew, right? But he said, hey, I see 20,000 people out there. But little does he know that they gave away 8,000 tickets for free. And the tickets was only $30 for who people paid. A promoter who does this for a living can't do that. They wouldn't make any money. No, they wouldn't make any money at all. But again, like I said, the artist doesn't know that. All the artists could go based on what he know and what he see. Yeah, they pay me 100. I see 20,000 people, so they made their money back. But as we know, Carnival has never been the same since. Carnival has never did those numbers again, not even close. Because like I said, they gave away a lot of tickets, and tickets for the show was $30. So I mean, paying $30 to see the Michael Jackson of any genre is gonna be sold out. Imagine paying $30 to go see Drake, $30 to go see Beyonce, $30 to go see any A-list artist in any genre. You don't have enough tickets. So, and again, and it's decisions like that again, people not in the industry, they're only making selfish decisions for their own, to serve themselves and their agendas, that really messes up industries. And I'm sure stories like that happening globally, and it really hurts the people like Fresh Entertainment and other promoters who do this for a living. It really messes them up, and it messes up the industry. No different than amateur promoters who just call in artists just to check on their price and know that they're not in a position to afford an artist, or even not even interested in an artist. They just want to see what it costs, and if it falls within their budget, then they take a chance and do it. But when an artist gets several calls from one city, one destination, then it sends a message that, hey, I must be hot there. I must be in high demand there. So now their price goes throughout the roof. And some of these shows, our market cannot afford to do them. Cannot. Paying an artist $500,000, paying an artist $1 million US to do a show is not going to work here. And we cannot compare ourselves as promoters with people like Atlantis or Bahamas, because even they would tell you they lose money on the show itself, but they make up in the casino, in food and beverage, in heads and beds. So they create this product back to high rollers who may lose 20 million in the casino, 50 million in the casino collectively, but the show itself may have lost $500,000. But the $500,000 loss on the show was just the carrot to get the high rollers and the family there. So as the wives and the kids watching the show, the husbands in the casino losing millions. So we can't compare ourselves with them, because their agendas are totally different from ours. Our agenda is to make some money, to turn a profit. Whereas their agenda is, hey, we're using this product, the industry, entertainment, to attract people so they can make money and their profit in other areas. And again, only regulations is gonna be able to control that stuff so it doesn't hurt the industry. Because like I said, everybody has their own agendas.
Back to your events.
Okay, so my events. I want to do 4 to 5 events this year, 4 or 5 parties. Most of them will have talent, artists, and DJs. But what is confirmed is Sunday, Carnival Sunday, we're going to be doing waves. The waves, we're into I think this is our 5th year, which is a boat cruise, 4-hour boat cruise on the water, a foam party on a boat cruise. It's been really growing every year. The experience on there is phenomenal. I mean, everybody enjoys themselves. I think we just had two issues last year. One was we ran out of water. The second was we didn't have sufficient shade from the sun. But this year we're gonna address those issues. They're easy issues to address and correct. So we'll double up on our water. And last year we had 30 cases of water. But again, people had so much fun and dancing and moving. They just was hydrating faster than we thought they needed to. So at the time we thought that 25 cases of water was sufficient, but it wasn't. So this year we're gonna increase that and add some Add some tents on the perimeter of the boat for additional shading for people who want to avoid the sun. And maybe that's why people needed to hydrate so much last year, because there wasn't sufficient shading. But I rather overcompensate and have more water than not enough. So we're still gonna double up on the water for hydration and add the tents for shading. And then a new event that we're gonna take advantage of is called H2O, which is a water party. So we're talking about pretty much strictly swimwear. So it's a water party, swimwear. That party will be on the land. So the other three parties, like I said, they're gonna be night parties, and they will all encompass artists, which we've already identified.
That sounds amazing. We're looking forward to that. That's going to add to the excitement of the Bahamas Carnival Fete weekend experience. Dahlia, do you have any questions or things that you want to respond to?
No, I'm actually really glad that you addressed the water and sun, because somebody who has been to waves from year one, I didn't go last year because I had some airport drop-offs and that prevented me from being on the boat. But that's always been sort of one of my biggest criticisms, if you will. But it's one of those things where it's going to be hot, but I really would like to not run out of water. And then having additional shade this year, I think will be fantastic, because that sun midday is no joke in the Bahamas.
Brutal.
Mm-hmm. And then you're on this boat, and I always say, like, I'm in the middle of this tin can and there's no shade. Yeah. So I'm glad that you addressed those things, because I think it's important for people to know that, you're thinking about how to improve the experience one small thing at a time. And I think that's really the key in tying everything you've shared with us together, paying attention to the details, making sure people are having a positive experience from buying tickets all the way to getting back to their cars, and having that experience that makes them want to come back, which I think is really important. I'm looking forward to H2O Monday, a new event. My events will be done, so I'll have time to relax.
The way June is set up, H2O is perfect. Listen, H2O Monday, from its start till it end, I can be there, because look, I need water.
Yeah.
Last Bahamas Carnival was a doozy, in the way the summer happened last year. Definitely H2O is going to be a vibe. Definitely going to be a vibe.
Add to your question on how do we improve the product, Bahamas Carnival. I think also promoters, we need to be more professionally mature to get in a room and discuss a weekend. Whereas our events aren't competing. Whereas, because we all fighting for one audience. I see it happen in Trinidad and other countries. These parties are like 4 hours at a time. And these parties start from 8 a.m. in the morning, sometimes earlier. They have breakfast fetes in the morning, that's 4 hours. From there, there's a boat cruise in the day, it's 4 hours. And then from there, there's like a private Ryan party, that's 4 hours. And from there, there's you know what I mean? And there's no reason multiple parties to be happening at the same time. You're creating this competition, and now our patrons have to try and figure out, okay, where are we going to go? Are we going to go to this one, or are we going to go to this one? Which one you think is going to be the better one? As opposed to being, hey, I want to experience everything, because if I'm going to jump on a plane and go to anywhere in the world, I want to experience as much things as possible. I don't want to miss anything. And my whole purpose of being there is experience. And I don't want the challenge of having to choose one thing over the other and miss it, because both of them can be amazing events and end up being amazing events, but it means that I'm gonna miss one. You know what I mean? And I don't want to miss anything. I want to experience everything. So I think promoters and organizers, we need to big boy panties or big boy boxes, whatever you want to call it, and and get in these rooms and around the round table and have positive discussions on how do we create a weekend experience for Bahamas Carnival. I mean, what I'm doing, that is something that I'm trying to create. But I don't want to be able to create that by myself. I won't be able to concentrate maybe on 2 events. You know, somebody else concentrate on 2 events, somebody else concentrate on 1 event or 2 events, and collectively we encompass the entire weekend, maybe even helping each other. We all have resources. Some of us have more resources than others. Some of us has more relationships in the industry than others. And we all could be there and help each other, ensure that everybody's event has its highest potential to be successful. Again, like I said, as opposed to really just competing and somebody's success really derives upon somebody else's failure, because that hurts the industry as opposed to helps it.
Those are some really, really good points. And I tend to agree with you on that, because there's a lot of room here for events to happen. And, you know, when an event fails or gets canceled, or, you know, that's just not a good look, and it harms the overall brand. And so there is a need for coming together and having conversations about, you know, how we all kind of move the product forward. And I think that's something that's been lacking up to this point, something that we're hoping to alleviate a little bit with, you know, the Bahamas Carnival Fete Weekend Collective, and all of us really coming together this year to have those conversations that are really key in the growth of the product. Yeah, I mean, you've brought up some really good points. The need for some personal growth, for having a bit of collaboration and conversations coming together, for going back to, you know, the roots of what Carnival is and where Fetes really started, and having those smaller events that have a chance to grow, rather than having these big expectations that are never met, and then we don't deliver a positive experience.
Right.
So,
And I agree with you. I totally agree. You know, but hopefully moving forward, like you said, you know, identifying a collective which share same goals, the same objectives, and who's willing to provide quality events, which objective is to create a great experience. You know, and I think, like I said, for it to work, the collective has to have the same objective. You know, and like I said, and that's why it's important to create these relationships. You know, I always believe that, and I always tell, you know, my staff that relationships is more valuable than money. It's just that, unfortunately, a lot of people chasing money and not relationships. You know, I feel that once you have relationships, you always have money. Matter of fact, you don't even need money if you have relationships. Those smaller promoters, or weaker promoters, or less experienced promoters, they will benefit from having relationships with the senior promoters, who can help them through consultation, who can help them through relationships in the industry, whether getting them a better deal with vendors, production companies, etc. You know, the whole 9 yards. And then we all have different marketing powers. So you can imagine if 7 promoters all promoting the same thing, then we ain't gonna miss nobody. As opposed to me promoting to my reach, but I'm still missing 40% of the people. But if we all promoting the same thing, because we all in this together and we all supporting each other, and our events doesn't really clash and conflict with anybody else's event, then we all win.
yeah, I agree. And we're seeing the products of that this year, I think, with our collective efforts.
Now, of course, you always can have some people who be like, yeah, well, forget them. You know, I can do my own thing. I don't need them. But again, you know, some people just want 100% of nothing, as opposed to a percentage of something. You know what I mean? That's just, again, that's the culture, that's life.
Yeah.
You know, and they're not going to see the big picture. But again, they lack emotional maturity. They lack a lot of things for them to think the way that they're thinking. And then you can have people who, I call them, they just they just jump on the bandwagon. They know that, okay, this is a big weekend. A lot of people can be in town, so they can just pop up and try and show an event. The crowd is split again. But again, if the collective, we have, and I'm sure next year's going to be much better. I want to be more involved with the collective. Start immediately after Carnival. I mean, and so anybody who wants to pop up, you know, we've been promoting from 9 months ago. This is all over. You know, we're 3 months out. So who ain't make up their mind on what they're gonna do? They can never make up their mind. But we in their face, we're in their ears. We have a lot of footage from the year before to really show people what the experience is gonna be, and we could create one big marketing campaign encompassing the entire weekend of what 2026 Carnival, Bahamas Carnival is gonna be. So now people be able to commit earlier. And again, we can't forget the fact that there's an economical war on the horizon. So the earlier people commit, the better. The earlier people know about stuff, then the more that they could budget and make adjustments to save. Even if their residual incomes are affected by the economic war, but they have enough time to pivot and still do certain things. Yeah, I think you know, you guys just have to really identify promoters and organizations and individuals who are gonna share the same goals. And again, you know, keep in mind the whole goal is to create a positive experience for Bahamas Carnival.
You know, and I think that's an excellent place to sort of wrap up the conversation and really to let people know, prepare to be sick of us next year, starting immediately. Because I think we're all on the same page with that. You know, how do we get the word out and working together to do that for 2026, looking beyond 2025, right? We're already here at 2025. Yeah. And so now we're looking beyond. And so looking forward to those conversations, looking forward to what that will look like for us in the coming months.
I just want to say thank you to Mr. Claire for joining us on Inside the Festival 2025 Talk Edition for Bahamas Carnival Fete Weekend. This show is brought to you in part by Bahamas Carnival Fete Weekend Collective, Carnival Radio, Duce, and The Print Shop. For more details and information about all activities happening during Bahamas Carnival Fete Weekend, you can visit carnivalconcierge.online or bahamascarnivalguide.com. Additionally, Fresh Entertainment is freshentbah.com. That's freshentbah.com. Thank you so much, and until next week, get inside the festival with Bahamas Carnival Fete Weekend.